The night Jason decided to walk into his own restaurant in disguise. He wasn't looking for trouble or searching for truth. Dressed in a simple black hoodie, worn-out jeans, and a cap pulled low over his face, the billionaire CEO stepped into Lumiere, the very place that had made his empire legendary. But lately, something felt off. Reviews had started slipping, customer complaints had a strange pattern, and for a man who built everything from nothing, Jason trusted instincts over reports. What he didn't expect was to find her. Emma stood near the corner of the dining hall, her hands trembling slightly as she wiped away tears, trying to hide them before anyone noticed. But Jason noticed. He always noticed the things others ignored. Her uniform was neat but worn, her shoes clearly old, and yet there was something quietly graceful about her, as if kindness itself had taken human form and decided to survive in a world that didn't deserve it. A rude customer had just stormed out after humiliating her over something trivial, and the manager, instead of defending her, had blamed her harshly in front of everyone. Jason's jaw tightened, but he didn't step in it yet. He wanted to see more. He needed to understand how deep this rot had spread. Moments later, Emma took a deep breath, forcing a soft smile as she approached another table. Despite everything, her voice was gentle, her tone warm, her eyes still carrying the fragile light of someone who refuses to let the world break them. Jason sat at a quiet table and watched her closely. When she came to take his order, she didn't see a billionaire. She saw a tired man. "You look like you've had a long day," she said softly, offering him a glass of water before he even asked. Sometimes a warm meal helps more than we think. That simple sentence hit him harder than any boardroom betrayal ever had. He decided to test something. "What do you recommend?" he asked, keeping his voice low. Emma hesitated for a moment, then leaned in slightly. "Honestly, the menu looks fancy, but if you're hungry, I'll ask the kitchen to make you something fresh. Not what's written, what's right." Jason raised an eyebrow. No employee had the courage to say that, and yet, she wasn't trying to impress him. She was trying to take care of him. As the night unfolded, Jason watched Emma quietly fix mistakes that weren't hers, help a struggling coworker without taking credit, and even pay for a child's dessert from her own pocket when the family couldn't afford it. Every action spoke louder than any resume ever could. This wasn't just a waitress. This was the heart his company had lost. When Emma finally brought his meal, it was simple but perfect, fresh, warm, and made with care. Jason took a bite and frowned. See, this was how Lumiere used to taste when he first built it. Before greed, before shortcuts, before people forgot what mattered. "Thank you," he said, looking at her with something deeper, now respect. Emma smiled faintly. "It's just food." "No," Jason replied quietly. "It's not just food." Their eyes met for a moment longer than strangers usually allow, and in that brief silence, something unspoken passed between them, something real. As the restaurant began to empty, Jason saw the manager scolding Emma again, accusing her of giving away unauthorized service. That was enough. He stood up, removed his cap slowly, and walked toward them. "Is there a problem here?" he asked, his voice no longer quiet, but commanding. The manager scoffed. "Stay out of this, sir. This doesn't concern customers." Jason tilted his head slightly, then reached into his pocket and placed something on the table, a black executive card. The color drained from the manager's face instantly, because standing before him wasn't a customer. It was the owner. And suddenly, everything changed. Silence fell like a storm no one was prepared for. The manager's voice disappeared, replaced by visible panic, while Emma stood frowning, her mind struggling to process what had just unfolded. Jason turned to her, his expression no longer hidden behind shadows, but softened with something she hadn't seen before, admiration. "You didn't know who I was," he said gently. Emma shook her head slowly. "And yet you treated me better than anyone here has treated their own job." She swallowed, unsure what to say. Jason turned back to the manager, his tone sharp now. "You humiliated someone who represents everything this place was built on. You chose control over compassion, profit over people." His voice lowered dangerously. "You're done here." The manager tried to speak, but no words came out. Then Jason looked at Emma again. "Walk with me," confused but calm. She followed him outside into the quiet night. The city lights reflected in her teary eyes as she finally found her voice. "I'm sorry if I did something wrong." Jason stopped walking. "You did everything right." Those four words hit her harder than anything else that night. For the first time, she didn't feel invisible. Over the next few days, everything changed. The restaurant underwent a quiet transformation, new management, better systems, but most importantly, a renewed focus on people. And at the center of it all was Emma. Jason didn't just offer her a promotion. He offered her a partnership. At first, she refused. Not because she didn't want it, but because she didn't believe she deserved it. But Jason saw what she couldn't. "You don't need a title to prove your worth," he told her one evening as they stood in the newly restored dining hall. "You already proved it the moment you chose kindness when no one was watching." And slowly, something began to grow between them. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't forced. It was built, just like everything else Jason believed in. From truth, from respect, from small moments, shared laughter, quiet conversations, and a connection that didn't need grand gestures to feel real. One evening, as the restaurant filled with life again, Emma stood beside Jason, watching everything they had rebuilt together. "You changed my life," she whispered. Jason shook his head gently. "No, Emma, you reminded me how to live it." She smiled through tears, but this time, they weren't from pain. They were from something she never thought she'd find: belonging. And as Jason reached for her hand, it as a CEO, but as a man who had finally found something money could never buy, Emma didn't pull away. Because sometimes, the most unexpected nights lead to the most beautiful beginnings.